Cool. Never won one of these before. All right, I'm gonna time myself because if I don't, you'll be listening to me till we get out of here. All right, this is a slight revision of the story that's in the, that won the award. You can afterwards, after you read it, tell me how much this version sucks compared to the original. But we'll see how far I get into it. All right, let's begin. The empty house. They had wandered in through the back door, little feet slinking their way further up into the sterile kitchen. The pantry shelves were lined with empty jars and tins and crates, but no food. They passed the French oak table, framed by two long benches, and approached the entrance leading into the hallway. As they turned the corner, the groan of the partially unhinged door swinging open startled them into a run. They hurried down the passage and up the ladder at the other end of the hall, each rung a step further from the back door through which they came. Once in the attic, they heard the shuffling of feet, the opening and closing of cabinet doors and drawers. Every now and then, the kitchen door creaked open, and then a moment later, shut. Like gargoyles perched atop St. Vitus, they crouched against the attic wall, betrayed only by their savage breathing and their darting eyes. His sister had clung to him, trusting but tense, much like a stray clinging to a kind hand. But now both their hearts screamed, sternum struggling to keep their ribs fastened shut. Hours passed. Secure amongst the pile of unwashed sheets and clothes, Dagny had submitted herself to restless ghosts, while Toby waits. His shoulder blades pressed through the threadbare cotton and into the pitted floorboards bowed from years of heat and damp. Pupils, almost the size of pennies, swallow blackness, scrounge for light. Slanted planks, burdened by the memory of decades' worth of wind and rain and snow, waver over his waif-like body. Blue-gray paint chips that once hid the oak finish of an antique dresser glitter the rot creeping out from underneath the far left corner of the attic's floor. A few feet forward of the dresser and to the right, the ladder reaches down from an opening in the boards and anchors the attic to the rest of the cabin. Only Toby's empty belly, the cold, and the shadows pulled from off the twisted paneling of the walls stir his mind. Thoughts of the Brule River and his mother flare up and fade. From across the river, the cabin had reminded him of home, a cobblestone chimney, pines watching over fallen, reshaped kin. But once on the other side of the makeshift sugar maple bridge, they saw a crippled mass of cast-off parts, shattered windows, a torn screen on an unhinged door, hand-split cedar shingles blown clear of the roof and sunk in the mud of bronze, decaying maple leaves. The home stood, protruding, a grotesque corpse of logs, the forest devouring its remains, its shape dissolving in the dusk, bleeding over into the night. Dressed in antlers, femurs strewn across dead grass, finger bones like wind chimes hung from rafters and clacking to the frantic rhythms of the wind. A few stray flesh flies still circling the remains of a putrefied whitetail carcass. The cabin looked anything but inviting, a twisted copy of the home they'd known along the Brule, but shelter nonetheless, and an opportunity for food. Every home they'd passed between here and Douglas County offered something. A rusty can of peaches, a worn duvet, cover from the rain. And the cabin had looked empty. Even so, it took some doing for Toby to drag his little sister through its kitchen door. She fought and yelled as he pulled and pinched her arm. "You got no sense, Tobias James. No way, not coming. Not another one of those." She pointed at the horrible cabin as she tried to pull away, but in the end she always came. Toby promised himself he'd keep watch, but the weight of hunger and the lack of sleep pulled at his eyelids. The heavy shuffling of feet had stopped, and his eyes are almost closed when faint light interrupts the black opening in the floor. A warmth accompanied by the smell of burning flesh seeps in and dances for an instant against his chin. Before they left Wisconsin, after every evening meal, his mother often shared the Norse tales of her father's home, her blonde hair caressing both their cheeks as she sat down on the couch nestled in between her precious porcelain dolls, ready to recount the tales of gods and wolves and elves and foes. He listened then as he does now, rigid, flushed, but his hunger outweighs his hold. He removes his hand from the frayed sweater, moth-eaten, damp, and draped over his sister's frame. He gets up. Dagny continues to swim, body squirming in wool and thread. Toby slides his feet across the wood paneling towards the opening in the floor. He catches his left toe on the edge of a raised board. His eyes water, but he stays quiet, always quiet, trapped behind invisible glass, never to have been gifted by the third son of Bor, forever without voice. He reaches the ladder. He stands at the edge of the precipice. The chasm stares back at him like a Burmese python, ready to swallow and consume him, absolutely. The light slithers and up and down the rungs and licks his feet. He licks back. He bites his lip and takes a step and then another. Before he realizes what he's done, he finds himself clutching the edge of a splintered pine rail, his feet planted on the Douglas floor. He turns and looks back up the ladder. He can still hear his sister sleep. The wild rhythms of her heavy breathing pierce the measured thumping of the rain. He turns away from the attic and witnesses 1,000 needle points of light flicker from across the hall. His neck leans up against the ladder stringer, matted auburn hair vaguely protecting his bruised flesh from the jagged edges of flat pine. He stares. His eyes probe the passageway. A doorway across the hall stands open. The boy can just make out a hearth, its blue and yellow tongue licking the underside of cobblestone. The warmth of that fiery throat calls him, ready to swallow whatever's left of his vigilance.